Well, the NBA's stretch run to the playoffs is upon us, and the Western Conference race is out of control currently, with the Dallas Mavericks and Sacramento Kings tied for the 7th seed at the moment, each with just 12 games remaining and both pacing for somewhere around 48 wins. The Mavericks, led by Luka Doncic, who is currently leading the league in scoring at 34 points per game and some change, while averaging damn near a triple-double on the season, with a running mate at the level of Kyrie Irving, and the two good enough to barely scrape into the 8th seed with nearly 50 wins. The Lakers, meanwhile, are in the 9th spot currently and on pace to win around 45 games for the year, which would have been a tough break to miss the postseason with such a healthy win total. Fortunately for LeBron James, the pitiful NBA that he resides in has put in a series of safeguards to make this league as easy as possible. And speaking of easy and conference standings, LeBron is just getting a little taste of what life was like for the real historical greats that populated the league back when he was slithering his way to the NBA Finals in the easiest conference in NBA history. Of course, James was in the Eastern Conference from 2004 to 2018, when he bounced back and forth to a few different teams, taking his talents to South Beach in 2011, then back to Cleveland in 2015, to amass 2 different super teams and ensure his entry into 8 consecutive NBA Finals, which his loser fan base continues to pleasure themselves over to this day. Of course, he needed to team jump and roster stack to make this all happen, despite the pathetic conference he was already in. And yeah, 9 of James's 10 career finals appearances came in that 15 years spent in the NBA's JV conference. And over those 15 seasons, the Eastern Conference won only 43% of the games against Big Brother in the West, with the East winning the season series against the West only 1 time during that entire 15-year span. And the Western Conference's superiority over that 15-year span should not come as any surprise, as all of the best players were in the Western Conference during that time. Of the 225 All-NBA first, second, and third team selections from 2004 to 2018, 147 of them played in the Western Conference. 65% of the All-NBA team members resided in the West. Not surprisingly, if the East was this weak at that time, the West had to be that strong. And the peak of the Western Conference's powers and superiority during the time came in the mid-2000s. This began in the 2006-2007 season when the league champion San Antonio Spurs won 58 games and were the 3 seed in the conference, finishing behind the 61-win Phoenix Suns and the 67-win Dallas Mavericks. All 3 teams were led by league MVPs in Steve Nash, Dirk Nowitzki, and Tim Duncan. And in that season, 5 teams won at least 50 games in the Western Conference, but that was nothing. The West was just getting warmed up, as in the next season, all 8 teams in the playoff field won at least 50 games during the 2007-2008 league year. The Golden State Warriors missed the playoffs despite having a record of 48-34, which would have been the 4 seed in the Eastern Conference that season. There were 3 teams at or below 500 in those Eastern Conference playoff field that year.
It's a complete crap.
The next year, in 2008-2009, the 48-win Utah Jazz were the 8th seed, while Steve Nash, who was just 2 seasons removed from back-to-back league MVPs, missed the playoffs that season with a 46-36 record. And finally, the following season of 2009-2010, the greatest single-season conference in NBA history without close comparison. The Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker Spurs were the 7 seed that year, and with a record of 50-32, the Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden Thunder were the 8 seed. That season, 10 of the 15 All-NBA players selected were in the West. Players like Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant, Dirk Nowitzki, Tim Duncan, Carmelo Anthony, Amari Stoudemire, and Steve Nash. 4 top roughly 20 players ever. And once the LA Lakers cleared that conference that season, they met the Boston Celtics beast from the East, making their second finals appearance in 3 seasons, a team that boasted 3 Hall of Famers in Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen. But no problem for Kobe Bryant, who would win the NBA championship and be named Finals MVP. And speaking of Kobe Bryant and that West, for the 3-year span, starting in 2007-2008, it would be Kobe that won the West all 3 seasons, with a team consisting of 0 other top 75 all-time players. This was, of course, during a time the NBA's LeBron jock-sniffing media was giving the Fraud King multiple league MVP awards. Really not that hard to see why Kobe easily clears LeBron, and now history is seemingly repeating itself with the stacked and insanely deep nature of this year's Western Conference. As we are headed to a reality where either Steph Curry's Warriors or LeBron James and Anthony Davis's Lakers are the 8th seed, or possibly neither of them making the playoffs at all, and maybe the Kings or Mavs being the 8th seed, both teams with multiple All-NBA caliber performers on them. And meanwhile, speaking of multiple All-NBA caliber performers, the Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal Suns still aren't out of the woods yet, as they are currently in a 3-way tie with Dallas and Sacramento, and they could easily fall into the play-in tournament themselves. There has been a lot of talk about the weak field Nikola Jokic navigated last season to win the NBA title, but there will be nothing weak about this year's, as if he clears that West, waiting for him will presumptively be the Boston Celtics, who currently have the 5th best net differential ever. And Jokic will be doing it with a roster that is devoid of any historically elite supporting cast. Yeah, we are perhaps on the verge of seeing another historical run of greatness. And it is nice to see that Jokic, who is currently the overwhelming betting odds-on favorite to capture his 3rd league MVP in 4 seasons, is actually being recognized for his excellence, unlike a certain other marginalized and criminally underrated legend we saw dominating the most difficult conference in NBA history.